They came onto my land like they owned it. For trucks, engines growling, tires crunching gravel as they pulled up my dirt road. The air was still that morning, too still. I remember thinking the silence before the storm always had its own kind of warning. The first man out of the truck was tall, broad-shouldered, and smug. He carried himself like authority, but wore it like a costume that didn't quite fit. Behind him, 3 others followed. Fake badges swinging from their chests, guns holstered, and that kind of arrogance that only comes from believing no one will question you. He walked right up to me, close enough that I could smell the stale coffee on his breath, and said, "We're here to confiscate all firearms on this property. Hand them over now or face consequences." I didn't move. My hand stayed behind my back. Steady, my jaw tightened. "This is my land," I said. "You have no right to be here." He smirked, a cruel little twist of the mouth. "We are the law here. You don't get a say." His men dropped duffel bags to the ground, unzipping them like they were setting up for a raid. They spread out, eyes scanning my barn, my tools, the porch, the windows, everything I'd built with my own 2 hands. The leader turned to one of his men. "Start with the barn. Check every inch." I felt the muscles in my neck tighten. They were trespassing, but worse, they were pretending to be something they weren't. I'd seen real lawmen before. These weren't them. One of them pointed toward the wall. "Found one." My old hunting rifle hung there, above the workbench. Before he could grab it, I stepped between him and the wall. "Back away," I said sharply. The leader chuckled. The sound fake and hollow. "Or what? You'll call the cops?" "We're the cops now." And that was the moment I knew they weren't real. Their badges were cheap metal, their vests mismatched, their weapons too clean, too new. No coordination, no discipline. They didn't know me. They didn't know that before this farm, before the peace and the quiet and the soil under my nails, I'd spent 20 years in the U.S. Army. Special operations, counterterrorism. I'd seen real danger. And these boys were amateurs playing dress-up. I scanned the barn with practice calm. 3 exits for intruders. 1 revolver on my hip. The odds weren't bad. But I waited. You learn that in war, patience is a weapon. "Fine," I said finally. "Take the gun. But you better be sure about what you're doing." The leader smirked. "Oh, I'm sure." He had no idea that under the workbench, just beneath my thumb, was a small switch, a silent alarm wired to alert my men. The men outside baling hay weren't farmhands. They were soldiers, my brothers in arms, retired from service but never from duty. As the fake officers strutted around my barn, I let my voice drop low. "You boys from around here?" One of them answered too quickly. "Does it matter?" I smiled faintly. "It will." The leader shoved a clipboard against my chest. "Sign this notice," he barked. "You're being fined $10,000 for violating HOA firearm safety codes. Refuse, and we seize everything." I looked at the paper. My name was spelled wrong. The address didn't even match. And the HOA seal? It looked like something printed on a home printer. I looked back up. "You really think this will hold up in court?" His fake grin faltered. "Court? You won't make it to court. Bag the weapons. If he resists, bag him too." That was enough. I moved faster than he could blink. My revolver cleared a holster and leveled straight at his chest. "Step back." The air in the barn turned cold. The other 3 froze. The leader's eyes widened, his false confidence crumbling. "Whoa, whoa. You can't pull a gun on HOA officials." I tilted my head slightly. Funny thing, HOA officials don't carry plastic badges. A door creaked open behind them. 3 of my men stepped in, moving like shadows, armed and silent. "Boss," one of them said calmly. "Perimeter secure." The impostors spun around, panic washing over their faces. The leader raised his hands. Okay, let's all calm down. We were just following orders." "Whose orders?" I asked. He hesitated. "The president of the HOA. She said you were a threat, that you had illegal weapons, and we'd be paid if we confiscated them." I felt something cold settle in my gut. "She," he nodded weakly. "Karen, Of course, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, always complaining about neighborhood standards, about my ugly barn and dangerous property. She filed 3 bogus complaints already: noise, zoning, safety. None had stuck, but this time she'd escalated. Before I could say another word, I heard the roar of an engine outside. A white SUV pulled up, kicking up dust, and then she stepped out. Karen, perfectly pressed blouse, oversized sunglasses, hair too perfect for a real day's work. She strutted toward the barn, phone in hand, confidence dripping off her like perfume. Well, she said, smirking. I showed up just in time to see a criminal threatening my HOA officers. I stared at her. They're not officers, Karen. They're criminals. She laughed, a shrill, practiced sound. You really think anyone's going to believe you over me? I run this community. When the sheriff gets here, you'll be in cuffs. I took a step closer, my voice low and calm. You have no idea what storm you just walked into. Behind me, one of my men whispered, Boss, Phase 2. I nodded. Phase 2. In an instant, my men moved. The fake HOA thugs were disarmed, cuffed, and pushed to their knees. Their cheap badges hit the floor with a metallic clatter. Karen's smirk faltered. You can't arrest my men. I reached into my vest and pulled out a leather wallet. The golden badge inside caught the light. Her smile froze. I am the law here, I said quietly. These men aren't farmhands. They're my unit, U.S. Army Command, Special Domestic Operations. She blinked, confused, like her mind couldn't compute what she was seeing. You're just the farmer. I took another slow step forward. I earned this land with 20 years of service. I bled for it. You think you can take it with paperwork and threats? She raised her phone like a weapon. I'll call the sheriff. He'll side with me. Almost on cue, a siren wailed in the distance. She smirked again. See? That's my backup. The cruiser rolled up, gravel spraying under its tires. But when the sheriff stepped out, his eyes met mine and he smiled. Colonel, he said, tipping his hat. We came as fast as we could. Karen's confidence shattered. Colonel, she whispered. The sheriff nodded at my men. Get these impersonators in the cruiser. Federal charges, impersonating law enforcement, conspiracy, fraud. Karen's face went pale. No, they were doing their job. You can't arrest them. I turned to her. Their job? You mean the one you paid them to do? One of my men handed the sheriff a tablet. Security footage. Karen handing those fake officers cash, giving them directions, laughing as she plotted to have me raided. The sheriff lifted the tablet for all to see. That's enough evidence for a dozen charges. Karen's voice broke. No, you can't. This is my community. I run this place. I looked her dead in the eye. Not anymore. The sheriff cuffed her himself. Karen, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and orchestrating impersonation of federal officers. She struggled as they led her away, her perfect composure finally breaking. You ruined everything, she screamed. I took a slow breath. No, Karen, you ruined yourself. As the cruisers pulled away, the neighbors began gathering by the fence line. Phones out, whispers spreading like wildfire. Some clapped, others just stared. I turned toward them and spoke loud enough for all to hear. This land was paid for in blood and service. No HOA, no fraud, and no Karen will ever take it from me or my family. A cheer rose up, a quiet, collective sigh of justice. The impostors were gone. Karen was gone. But the anger she'd stirred still lingered, not just in me, but in the whole community. They'd seen too many bullies hide behind rules, too many good people pushed around because someone in power thought they could. That evening, after the sun dipped below the hills, I sat on my porch. The air smelled of rain and dust. My revolver rested beside me. One of my men walked up quietly. You okay, boss? I nodded slowly. Yeah, just thinking. He sat beside me. About her? No, I said, about all the people like her. The ones who think power means control. Who forget what respect feels like? He nodded, understanding. I looked out over the fields, the land I'd rebuilt from nothing, the same land my wife and I had dreamed about when I retired. She used to say the soil remembered every hand that worked it. Maybe she was right. Maybe that's why it hurt so much when someone tried to take it. I whispered to the wind, "This land is home, and home is worth fighting for." My man smiled faintly. Phase 3? I chuckled. Yeah, clean up and reset. The men got to work, fixing the mess left behind. The broken lock on the barn door, the trampled flower beds, the spilled tools. By the time the stars came out, the place was quiet again, whole again. I stood there, watching the sky burn orange and gold one last time before night took over. And I made a silent promise. No matter who came next, no matter what form they took, no one would ever take my home, my peace, or my freedom again. Because when a man's pushed too far, when his home and honor are on the line, that's when he remembers exactly who he is.